That morning, the sky was unusually clear. Golden rays of sunlight filtered through the leaves, casting their glow on the winding dirt path along the hillside. Tunya carried a woven basket on her back, silently walking along the small stream, the one that led to the fruit hill above. The cool mountain breeze swept past her sleeves, rustling gently through the canopy overhead. Her heart, too, felt a little lighter, because today was a harvest day. The little plot of land she was heading to was one that Teuka had lent her. It was modest in size, but already full of fruit trees that Teuka had planted before she left. This season, the pomelos were ripening in abundance, and the jackfruits had just begun to release a sweet, subtle fragrance. Tunya bent down to pick each fruit, carefully choosing only the ones just ripe. At times, she stood upright and winced slightly. The growing weight of her belly made every task slower, heavier, but she never complained. On that sun-darkened face was only quiet endurance and eyes that shimmered with gentle hope. When the basket was full, she covered it with a layer of leaves and tied it shut with a small rope. Then, as usual, she followed the dirt path down to the township market. The market was busier than usual today. Still the same old tarpaulin-covered stalls, still the familiar vendor calls. But for Tunya, each visit felt like a small joy, because there, she could not only sell a few fruits, but also feel as though she were living a normal life, like everyone else. Perhaps it was her quiet demeanor, her pale face, and the clearly pregnant belly that made many people stop. An older woman bought 2 pomelos from her and softly said, "Hang in there, child. You look so pitiful." Another lady slipped a few extra bills into her hand. "Make some porridge when you get home. Don't go hungry." Tunya smiled faintly, nodding in thanks, her heart tightening with emotion. There are small acts of kindness that most would forget, but for someone barely holding on in life like her, they were the thin threads that kept her from falling apart. By the time the sun was high overhead, her goods were nearly sold out. She counted the small notes in her pocket. Not much, but enough to buy some rice, a little salt, and a few pieces of ginger to bring home. On her way back from the market, Tunya stopped by a small corner stall. It was a second-hand shop, clothes hanging from a wire strung between 2 trees. The colors had faded, but they were still intact. She stood there for a moment, hesitant. Her hand reached for a pale cotton shirt, then slowly pulled out a few crumpled bills from the pocket of her worn jacket. Ever since she was driven away, wandering from the forest to the town, she had only one set of clothes, patched and torn, so thin that even the wind could pass through. Many times, she had to wash them and sit curled up, waiting for them to dry, because there was nothing else to wear. But today, she told herself, "I need to stay warm for both of us." So she picked out a simple outfit, a light blue cotton shirt and a pair of soft, well-fitting trousers. The vendor kindly added an old pair of socks, gently saying, "It's getting cold. Wear them, or you'll catch a chill." Tunya smiled, bowed her head in gratitude, and hugged the clothes to her chest. They were warm, not just because of the fabric, but because of the kindness of a stranger. Before leaving the market, she stopped by another small stall, to buy a new woven mat and a thin gray blanket. The old mat in the hut was frayed and worn, and every night when she lay down, she could hear the crunch of dry straw beneath her back. She placed everything into her basket. It was heavy, but her steps felt light. No one knows how simple joy becomes for someone who has lost everything. Just to wear dry clothes, to sleep on a clean mat, and to no longer shiver through the cold night. Back at the hut, she spread the new mat across the ground and gently laid the blanket where she would sleep. Then she changed into her new clothes and stood in front of the small, warped mirror hanging on the bamboo wall. No more dirt-stained hems, no more torn sleeves, just a thin, pale woman. But her eyes shone brighter than ever before. She raised a hand to smooth her hair and softly smiled. Tomorrow, I'll try even harder. The mountain wind had already begun to chill. It was a day like any other, a day that seemed as quiet and ordinary as the ones before, but no one knew that when the sun dipped behind the hill, a strange wind would blow in, and once again, test the quiet strength of a fragile woman trying her best to hold on. The afternoon descended slowly, like a thin curtain draping over the hillside. Tunya swept the yard of the small hut, each stroke of the broom quiet, steady, as if she were clearing away the clutter in her heart. The yard, once overrun with weeds, was now tidy after days of care. Dry leaves were gathered into small piles under the trees. Old straw was stacked to be used as firewood. In the pale sunlight of dusk, her thin, frail figure cast a long shadow on the ground, blending into the earthy red of soil and wind. Behind the hut, the small garden she had nurtured was growing greener each day. Beneath the sweet mustard greens, tiny ants crawled over the fragile leaves. Nearby, the onion bulbs she had planted on a rainy afternoon had unexpectedly sprouted, forming a patch of green glistening with dew. She watered each plant gently, as carefully as if she were lulling a child to sleep. The water trickled down the leaves, falling onto the soil in tiny streams, releasing the scent of quiet life taking root. Tunya placed her hand on her belly, breathing softly. A dull ache in her back made her lean against the wooden post for a moment's rest. But her gaze never left the garden. There was something strange about this feeling. A silent love, nameless, yet so deep it was hard to describe. White blossoms looked like children's smiles. Her hand brushed gently against a small cluster of flowers, and she whispered, "Grow strong. When my baby is born, there will be fresh vegetables for soup." The wind slipped through the bamboo walls, making the roof rustle softly. Tunya stepped back inside, folded the blanket she had left to dry by the bed, and neatly arranged the bamboo basket near the stove. As she worked, she wondered about dinner. Perhaps only a thin bowl of porridge with a few amaranth leaves and a pinch of salt. Yet tonight, her heart felt full. This little hut was once only a shelter for field workers, with tilted walls, a leaky roof, and uneven floors. But since she came, it had slowly taken on the warmth of a home. She didn't know how long she would be allowed to stay, but at least today, she still had a place to return to. Just then, footsteps sounded from the dirt path outside. At first faint, then closer, heavy and hurried. Tu-Nha squinted, still holding the bamboo broom across the doorway. A large, unfamiliar man was approaching. His face was stern, his eyes as cold and rough as the bark of a tree. Each step he took struck the earth, beating the rhythm of a storm about to arrive. Tu-Nha froze. Her hand loosened, and the broom fell to the ground with a dull, dry thud. Her eyes still carried their gentle light, but now a quiet unease began to rise. She straightened her back, instinctively placing a protective hand over her belly, and waited. The man stepped out from behind the bushes, his brows furrowed, a face lined with the kind of wrinkles that come from a life spent scowling. His faded shirt clung to his thin frame, hands on hips, finger pointing straight at her. "Who are you? Who let you in here? What are you doing on my land?" Tu-Nha froze. She stood up slowly, instinctively placing her hands over her belly. Her voice trembled, soft as a whisper. "I'm a friend of Tu-Ta. She said this hut was still empty, so I..." Before she could finish, the man snapped. "Friend or not, you have no right to be here. You're trespassing. You trying to steal my land." Tu-Nha stepped back. A gust of wind ripped through the tarp over the porch, casting her shadow long against the cold, bare ground. She tried to steady her voice. I didn't know. If I'm wrong, I'll leave, but Tu-Ka said." "I don't care what she said," he cut in, eyes burning. "I want you gone. Right now, or I'll call the police." His voice sliced through the air like a blade. The little hut suddenly felt even smaller. Tu-Nha burst into tears. No sobs, just two quiet streams falling down her sunken cheeks. She said nothing more, just stood there, hands cradling the place where a fragile life was quietly growing. Just then, from the distant dirt path, Tu-Ka appeared. Hearing the shouting, she ran up, breathless. "What happened?" she asked, looking from Tu-Nha to the man. Once Tu-Nha explained, a flash of anger crossed Tu-Ka's face. "What are you doing?" she demanded. "You're trying to throw someone out even though my lease is still valid?" The man turned, startled. "You let someone stay here without telling me? This is my land. But the contract, as I have full use of it for 5 years. It's only been 3, Tu-Ka said firmly. "If you keep making trouble, I'll report your breach of agreement to the authorities." Silence. The wind kept blowing through the hut's thatched roof, making it creak and see. The man hesitated. Then, as if embarrassed, he muttered, "Do whatever you want. Just don't let anyone ruin this place." With that, he turned and walked away, his figure slowly fading into the eucalyptus trees. Left alone, Tu-Ka gently placed a hand on Tu-Nha's shoulder. "It's okay now. I'm here." That was enough to break her. Tu-Nha finally wept. Not just from this moment, but from days of fear, of exhaustion, of silently holding everything in. She stood there trembling, her hands clenched, eyes red but not broken. "You know," she said softly, "just now, I thought, if I was kicked out again, I might not have the strength to go on anymore." Tu-Ka's voice was gentle, her eyes kind. "It's okay. I've got you. Before leaving, Tuka turned back, smiling warmly. If things get hard again, just come find me, okay? Tunya nodded. Her eyes followed her friend until she disappeared beyond the winding path. Something warm stirred in her chest. Back inside the hut, she carefully unrolled the mat she hadn't even had time to use. It was thin, but clean. Its faint scent of rush grass carried the quiet warmth of a new beginning. She sat beside the window, watching the trees sway gently in the wind. A soft whisper escaped her lips. "Thank you, Tuka. Truly." The words drifted quietly into the air, but in her heart, they were a solemn promise to live better for herself and her child. She stepped softly outside toward the stream. The water was cool and clear, dancing around her fingers and toes. For the first time in weeks, she bathed without fear, no longer hiding behind rocks, no longer trembling in the shadows. Just a poor woman, slowly learning how to take care of herself again. And so it was. That evening faded with the sound of water flowing gently by the stream, and a woman quietly bowing to the earth, as if washing away all the sorrow of days gone by. Tunya returned home as twilight settled in. Inside the little hut, sunlight poured in through the cracks in the wall, falling softly across her mat. She sat down, gently held her belly, and whispered to herself, "I'll try, little by little." The breeze blew in through the window, carrying the smell of damp grass and stream water. Tunya sat quietly, watching the specks of dust float in the golden air, her heart strangely calm. No more noise from the city, no more footsteps chasing her through the night. Only her and the child growing inside her, in a silence filled with grace. Outside, night fell completely. Tunya stood, struck a match. The small flame flared to life. A quiet affirmation. Even if it's just a poor hut, a plain meal, a simple mat on the floor, with resolve and a glimmer of hope, this too can be the beginning of a new life. Today comes to a close with a rare, gentle moment of peace. No more tears, no more weary sighs, only quiet gratitude and the faintest flicker of light, glowing softly within the heart of a mother. Though life still holds many storms ahead, in this remote, rugged land, where life once felt as fragile as a leaf clinging to the end of a season, Tunya has begun to lay down the very first bricks of her new life, not with anything grand, but with each step forward, each time she rises after falling, and every brave breath of a woman who refuses to give up. In the next episode, we'll witness the changes slowly taking shape through her own small hands, and the steady, resilient heart that guides them. A new journey awaits, filled with quiet joys, unexpected challenges, and a growing light rising from deep within the eyes of this remarkable young woman.
Ngày hôm nay khép lại bằng một khoảnh khắc bình yên hiếm hoi, không còn nước mắt rơi lặng lẽ trên má, cũng không còn những tiếng thở dài nặng nề trong bóng tối, chỉ còn lại một chút tĩnh lặng, một chút ấm áp len lỏi qua từng kẽ lá và từng hơi thở mệt nhoài, và một tia sáng rất nhỏ, le lói nhưng thật bền bỉ đang dần thức dậy trong trái tim của một người mẹ. Tỷ Nha không có gì trong tay ngoài chính bản thân mình, thân thể gầy guộc, đôi bàn tay cay sần và một sinh linh đang lớn lên từng ngày trong bụng. Nhưng giữa chốn núi rừng hoang vu, nơi sự sống từng mỏng manh như chiếc lá cuối mùa, cô vẫn lựa chọn bước tiếp. Từng lần gượng dậy tưởng chừng như không thể bước tiếp. Niềm tin rằng chỉ cần còn sống thì sẽ còn hy vọng, rằng một mái nhà tuy siêu vẹo nhưng tình người vẫn là nơi đáng sống. Rằng cuộc đời này dẫu có nghiệt ngã nhưng vẫn còn có chỗ cho những khởi đầu dịu dàng. Một hành trình mới đang mở ra, hành trình của những niềm vui giản dị, những vấp ngã bất ngờ và những điều tưởng chừng nhỏ bé nhưng lại có sức mạnh hồi sinh cả một tâm hồn đã từng trải. Ánh sáng dù chưa rực rỡ đang lớn dần từ sâu trong đáy mắt của cô gái ấy. Một ánh sáng mang tên hy vọng được thắp lên bởi tình thương, bởi nghị lực và bởi giấc mơ chưa bao giờ lụi tắt.